with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Together we can make a difference if we try. Hello there, my lovely friends. Good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy holidays. Today is a good day in seeking justice for London Valdez. It's been a while since we've checked in detail in this case. I did post a message when Braydon Brown was originally arrested on October 30th. But we haven't gone through in detail, and he has had a hearing this morning in Beaver County, Oklahoma. But we have a lot to go through. A lot has happened in this case over the last couple of months, the last month and a half, including his arrest, and lots of court documents have been filed. Some of them eventually became available online. Some of them were not, like the probable cause affidavit. So I kind of pivoted a little bit since his hearing was this morning to go over the court documents first. And we will take a look at the probable cause affidavit. But the actual video footage of the boots on the ground that I did with Brittany and Rochelle is going to come in part 2 and part 3. So today we're going to look at several court documents. There are like a dozen or so court documents that have been filed in his case, starting with his arrest. Well, actually starting with the probable cause affidavit and then with the arrest. And we have a document from the prosecutor, Buddy Leach. So let's pull up the People magazine article on it. It's finally starting to get a little bit of national coverage. We're going to have to stay on it, though, I think, for it to get more national coverage. So we can all be sure that we get justice for London. So let's look at this People magazine article. 16-year-old girl vanished in June. Her body was found days later. Now police have a suspect. So we've been covering this since June, but it hasn't got a lot of national publicity. Need to know, London Valdez's grandmother, that's Liz Taylor, reported her missing from their Oklahoma home in June. That's Hooker, Oklahoma. Days later, her body was found in a rural section of Beaver County. So she left home on June 5th, and she was officially reported missing and eventually a runaway on June 7th out of Hooker, and they didn't really know where she went and who she was with until a few days after that, till June 9th. A 19-year-old man she was allegedly traveling with is now in custody and charged in connection with her death. The probable cause affidavit goes into detail with names, dates, and places. and even mentioned some cell phone pings. So we're going to get into that. But let's go through the timeline right now. A 19-year-old Oklahoma man has been charged in connection with the death of a 16-year-old girl who went missing in June. On Thursday, October 30th, the Braydon Brown was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. So we'll probably go to his OSCN, that's the official Oklahoma State Court net, that where we can see the specific charges, because there are secondary charges that are alternative charges for the jury to consider, which is interesting. He was already booked into the Beaver County Jail on unrelated charges at the time. We'll look at that case first. We'll just like pop that open real quick. The most recent arrest stems from a suspicious death investigation after the body of a teenage girl was found in a rural section of Beaver County on June 12th. So we know now that's outside of Forgan, Oklahoma, the little town south of Beaver. And Beaver is the capital of Beaver County. Makes sense, right? And that's where his hearings are going on. That's where he's being held on a $250,000 bond, cash or secured. The most recent arrest stems from a suspicious death investigation after the body of a teenage girl was found in a rural section of Beaver County on June 12th. Per the statement, the victim was a 16-year-old female from Hooker. The victim, later identified by authorities in July as London Valdez, had been reported missing by her grandmother 5 days before her body was found. Some of our boots on the ground coverage is going to get into a little bit of why she wasn't found for 5 days, especially when they know who she was last seen with on June 9th. They knew it on June 9th, and she still wasn't found for 3 days after that. So we'll talk about that in part 2 and part 3, and we'll show video, boots on the ground of the location where she was found and where the SUV was stuck. Valdez's cause and manner of death was determined to be acute methamphetamine toxicity. We've talked about that, compounded by hyperthermia. Hyperthermia is overheating. According to the OSBI statement, which added that she was allegedly traveling with Brown a few days before she died, after speaking to Brown, investigators learned that he was intoxicated on methamphetamine while the two were traveling, the OSBI alleged. Brown was driving the vehicle and got stuck on a dirt road. We drove down that dirt road just north of the intersection where the victim was found deceased. Brown then exited the vehicle and fled the scene. That was the last time Valdez was seen alive. According to her obituary, Valdez died on June 7th. She had a big heart for rescuing animals. She also enjoyed playing softball, listening to music, and hanging out with her friends. Her biggest joy was the time she spent hiking at Red River, New Mexico, or in the mountains, and driving around Ponca Lake with her mother, Brittany. Besides looking out for animals, Valdez was always there for anyone who needed her or just needed someone to listen. She was particularly kind to the underdog and was always putting others before herself. London will be forever 16 in the hearts of those who loved her, the obituary says. Authorities are continuing to investigate. It is unclear whether Brown has retained an attorney who can speak on his behalf. We have an answer to that too in the court documents. So we're going to go through those that answer some of those questions and talk about some of those details. But let's take a look at his OSC in court docket and the events that have happened in his case. So this won't be updated with the hearing that happened this morning. This is up until this morning. So here we have, hold on, let me add that to the stage. So here we have Beaver County, Braydon Gene Brown, CM, that's a misdemeanor case, and CF, that's his felony case. District Attorney George H. Leach III, that's Buddy Leach. He goes by Buddy Leach. Arresting agency, Beaver Police Department. Here are the counts. Count 1, domestic abuse, assault and battery. 2, unlawful possession of drug paraphernalia. So originally, so he was living with his dad in Beaver, even though his official address is with his mom in Woodward, Oklahoma. So his mom and dad aren't together anymore. Mom lives in Woodward, dad lives in Beaver. He had been living with his dad. And this is supposedly an incident that happened between them, allegedly. I did a court search for arrest for his dad yesterday, and I didn't see it. So I don't know if the charges were dropped for his dad, because I believe his father got arrested the same night. I believe. But I also don't know his dad's full legal name. I know he goes by Leo, but I don't know if that's Leonard, and maybe I was looking up the wrong information. That's beside the point. So this happened. So if you look up here, October 29th was his hearing date at 9 a.m. So probably what happened was that's his initial appearance the morning after he got arrested. So that probably happened on October 28th. That's an important date because he was booked into jail probably on the 28th, just a day or so before he was actually charged and taken into custody for the felony murder 2. I don't want to confuse those. Felony murder is first-degree murder. So second-degree murder is what he was actually charged with. So let's go back and look at that. We'll look at the counts. So October 29th, he had his initial court appearance for the domestic violence and drug paraphernalia charges. Now here is the criminal felony second-degree murder. Arresting officer Ryan Beck, arresting agency OSBI. So not the local police department. This is the OSBI, and that's important because the OSBI and Special Agent Ryan Beck is the one who prepared the probable cause affidavit, and we'll take a look at that in detail in a little bit here. 1 count. This is important. Come down here to counts. Okay, so if you see Thursday, October 30th, a bench warrant was issued. So that's 1 day after his appearance on the domestic violence charges. The domestic violence and drug charges. October 30th, 1 day later after that initial appearance, a bench warrant was issued for second-degree murder count, murder in the second degree, or in the alternative, murder in the first degree by misdemeanor manslaughter. So I'm a little confused by that, and that doesn't actually match some of the court documents. Murder in the first degree is actually in some of the court documents, manslaughter in the first degree by misdemeanor manslaughter. So we're going to have to dive into that. We're going to have to do a little bit of research and figure out what the differences are. And if first degree murder by misdemeanor manslaughter is a possible charge, why isn't that listed first? You know, there's usually when they're charged, the more serious charge is listed first, and the lesser alternative charges are listed after that. So it's a little confusing to me. And a couple of other people that I've talked to about it. Brittany and Rochelle and I talked about it yesterday. They're confused by it too. And if you look at the possible sentence in it, the alternative charges carry a lesser sentence, 4 years, minimum of 4 years. And murder in the second degree carries a possible sentence of 10 years to life. So we'll take a look at the documents and figure out if that's maybe just somebody is entering the information wrong into the OSCN, and those aren't the actual secondary charges. All right, let's get into the court documents. We're going to start with a brief glance at the probable cause affidavit. We're not going to, I want to say this was actually the first official document that was filed. It was sealed for 72 hours after his arrest, and then it was released. So I was able to obtain them from the county, the court clerk. But this was not a document that was provided online. Eventually, most of these documents that I have copies of were provided online. But at that time, 72 hours after his arrest, when they were finally released, you have to go in person to the court clerk to get copies of them in person. And that's what we did. And the PCA has never been made available online. So this is not a document that's available online. You have to go in person. It is a public document, but it's not available online at the OSCN. So we're not going to go into detail through the details of the investigation yet. I want to save that till last. I just want to note the date that Special Agent Ryan Beck signed this, October 23rd. So the bench warrant wasn't actually issued until October 30th, a week later. And the prosecuting attorney basically took a week after this probable cause affidavit, after he got this PCA, to make his decision to charge and what to charge. But also note that I was told that the OSBI doesn't make charging recommendations, but here we have, right above Special Agent Ryan Beck's signature, the arrestee should be held in custody until a bond as set forth is posted or the arrestee is brought back before the court to answer for the offense of Braydon Brown, count 1, second-degree murder. So there was a charging recommendation included in this PCA. I was told that wouldn't happen. It did happen. And that's interesting. All right. And that's actually what he was charged with, second-degree murder. So the district attorney went along with it. Buddy Leach went along with it. Based on the prosecutorial. The prosecutorial is like a lengthy document that with details of the investigation. Obviously, the defense is going to get that in discovery as well, but the public is not going to get that anytime soon. All right, there's that one. So let's start looking at the other court documents in order, in chronological order. Here we go. And it starts with, so after Special Agent Ryan Beck signed off on his probable cause affidavit, Buddy Leach was the next one to prepare a document, and it just says at the top, information. So I'll zoom in a little bit. In the District Court of the First Judicial District of the State of Oklahoma, sitting in and for Beaver County. Information is the title of this document. For count 1, murder in the second degree, or in the alternative. So here's where this differs from the OSCN. Manslaughter in the first degree by misdemeanor manslaughter. 21 OS 711 of felony. So both of them are felony charges, but there are only 2 charges. There will be 2 charges for the jury to consider if this stays the same all the way up through the jury trial. And we can assume that there is going to be a jury trial because the defense attorney isn't going to, as far as I know, plea out at any time soon. We have no knowledge of any type of a plea hearing that has been scheduled. Undersigned District Attorney of said county, Braydon Brown, did then and there unlawfully, willingly, knowingly, and wrongfully commit the crime of murder in the second degree of felony. The death of London Valdez occurred as a result of an act or event which happened in the commission of one or more of the following felonies. Child neglect. The defendant, Braydon Brown, voluntarily accepted responsibility for the care and or supervision of the minor child, London Valdez, when he undertook to drive her from Guyman, Oklahoma, to her home in Hooker, Oklahoma, on June 7th, 2025. So when we get to part 2 and part 3 of this series, we're going to take a look at the maps and where Guyman is. Obviously, you can look it up for yourself too, but where Guyman is, Hooker, Oklahoma, where her home is in between Guyman and where she eventually was found outside of Forgan. So he had to drive past her home to get to where they eventually wound up. And then willfully failed to provide her with adequate supervision to protect her from harm, which a reasonable and prudent person responsible for the same would have been aware, and or on or about and between June 5th, 2025 and June 7th, 2025, failed to protect a minor child, London Valdez, from exposure to the use and possession of illegal drugs, i.e. marijuana, methamphetamine, amphetamine, etc., and other illegal activities, contributing to the delinquency of a minor and or encouraging a minor to be in need of supervision and or commit drug crimes, etc., and or, this is a big one, abandoned London Valdez on June 7th, 2025. And causing, aiding, and encouraging minor to commit drug-related crime on or about and between June 5th, 2025 and June 7th, 2025, the defendant, Braydon Brown, caused and or aided and or encouraged minor child, London Valdez, to possess and consume marijuana and or cocaine and or amphetamine and or Xanax. This crime is punishable by imprisonment for 10 years to life or the alternative. Manslaughter in the first degree by misdemeanor manslaughter, a felony. The death of London Valdez occurred as a result of an act or event which happened in the commission of one or more of the following misdemeanors, contributing to the delinquency. We'll go ahead and read those because they differ slightly from the previous paragraphs. The defendant, Braydon Brown, so we're on the first paragraph now, knowingly and or willfully caused and or aided and or abetted and or encouraged a minor child, London Valdez, to be and or become and or remain delinquent and or a runaway child by allowing her to possess and consume illegal drugs and alcohol, and or remain a runaway by not returning London Valdez, who is absent from home without her grandmother's permission, to her grandmother, and or the defendant, Braydon Brown, knowingly and willfully caused and or aided and or abetted and or encouraged a minor child, London Valdez, to be and or become and or remain in need of supervision and or contributed to need of supervision and or deprivation by her absence from home for a substantial length of time without consent of her grandparent, and or abandoning her and or not providing appropriate care and supervision after leaving her alone in rural Beaver County. So that was the next document that was filed. Let's close that one out and look at the next one. Let's make sure we're showing this. Yep. Everything's running smoothly for a change. So on that same day, so that was October 29th, that same day, October 29th, these documents, so the probable cause affidavit and then the information that we just read from Buddy Leach, the district attorney, were provided to the judge, and the judge read those. After examining the attached affidavits, the court finds there is probable cause to believe that the offense of Braydon Brown, count 1, second-degree murder, has been committed, and the above-named individual has committed the said offense and that the above named individual should be held in custody. So keep in mind, he is already in the Beaver County Jail on that domestic violence charge. That the incident probably occurred on the 28th, and he had his hearing the morning of the 29th. So this is later on in the day, 1:30 p.m. So this is just a few hours after he was initially in front of the judge. Dated the 29th of October, 2025, 1:30 p.m. John Parsley. How do I read that? I just know the name from other documents because I can't read that. Okay, here is the felony warrant. So the bench warrant was issued. This is the felony warrant that was issued. The state of Oklahoma, county of Beaver, to any law enforcement officer, you are hereby commanded to forthwith arrest and take Braydon Brown into custody for the offense of count 1, murder in the second degree, or in the alternative, manslaughter in the first degree by misdemeanor manslaughter. So this also says the same thing, whereas the OSCN says murder in the first degree by misdemeanor manslaughter. So I think the OSCN just has like a typo in it, because these are the official court documents. The OSCN doesn't control what the actual official charges are. These documents do. And bring him before me or some other magistrate having cognizance of the case to be dealt with according to law. You are further directed to execute this writ or warrant either in the daytime or nighttime. Bond for the release is hereby fixed in the sum of $250,000 until the further order of the court. All right, so this is one of the documents that was not available online. So we had to get this from the court clerk, and I can't read the officer's signature. Like, it looks like the first letter of his first name and the first letter of his second name are the same, but I have no idea who that is. Let's zoom in on it. This is the officer report, state of Oklahoma, county of Beaver. Received the within writ on the 30th day of October. So the actual bench warrant was issued on the 29th, received it on the 30th, and executed the same by taking into custody Braydon Brown and presenting him before the court this 30th day of October 2025. Arresting one person at $50 each, $50. That's interesting. I don't know what that means. He gets a $50 fee for arresting somebody that was in jail already. That's interesting. I'm going to have to find out more about that, but it's not relevant. It's not relevant, but it is interesting. All right. And then, so he was brought before the magistrate. He had his appearance. Oh, no, this is the 29th. Oh, we're going backwards a day. I have these out of order slightly. So this is before he was actually taken into custody for the charge of second-degree murder. The district attorney's office presented an information affidavit of probable cause for arrest warrant to protect the safety of law enforcement officers serving said warrant. The court finds good cause. Okay, so that's why this was to protect the safety of law enforcement officers serving said warrant. Court finds good cause, and the court does hereby order that the case filed herein is sealed and restricted from the public by the court clerk for 3 days. So they're saying, okay, after we issue the arrest warrant, we don't want people finding out about it and anybody running, so we're going to seal it. But that's sealed from everybody, including the public, the media, everybody. All right, so fast forward about a week. So that was October 30th. He was taken into custody. Fast forward 6 days. So this is November 5th. Record of felony proceedings. He makes his initial appearance. Braydon Brown makes his initial appearance on November 5th. So this is 6 weeks ago-ish. Record of felony proceedings before examining magistrate. On November 5th at 9:15 a.m., It's the initial appearance of the defendant. The defendant appeared personally and with his attorney in McCaffrey OIDS. So I think that's Oklahoma Indigent Defense Services. So a lot of times on initial appearance, the court just has a standby public defender to advise the defendants as they're standing in front of the judge for the first time. The defendant admitted his true name as charged. Yeah, it says McCaffrey is special appearance only. Okay, stating his age is 19, date of birth September 2006. So he just turned 19. The defendant adjudged competent for purposes of proceedings. Yes. Record by FTR. So they have a court camera system. The defendant acknowledged receipt of information and was advised he was charged with a felony, was advised of the punishment prescribed by law for the offense charged, affirmatively waived the reading of the information. Defendant was advised by the court of his constitutional rights, including his right to counsel and to preliminary hearing, was advised that if he was a minor or desired counsel and had no means and unable to employ counsel, the court must appoint counsel for him without expense to him. Further proceedings as to attorney status set for November 12th, 2025 at 10 a.m. So we have the record of the proceedings from that too coming up. Nothing else is checked off till we get down here. Defendant's bail is fixed at $250,000, surety or cash. Also on November 5th, same day, advised of his constitutional rights, right to a speedy trial, fair and impartial jury. You are presumed innocent of any charge. You have the right to remain silent before and during trial. You have a right to be represented by an attorney. You have a right to act as your own attorney as long as you make that decision freely, affirmatively, voluntarily, and competently. F, you have the right at trial to be present while the state's witnesses are called to testify against you. Through your attorney, you have the right to cross-examine these witnesses. You have the right at trial to call witnesses. Unless the criminal charges are such that the court can deny bail, you have the right to bail. If you are charged with a felony, which he was, you have a right to a preliminary hearing. That's, I don't know how many preliminary hearings are going to go on because we'll get to that in a minute. Today was another preliminary hearing, obviously. It wasn't a motions hearing. It wasn't a plea hearing. So we're supposed to check in with Brittany and Rochelle later to find out what actually happened in the hearing today. If you're charged only with a misdemeanor, doesn't apply at the appropriate time in hearing. If you choose to enter some form of guilty plea, doesn't apply yet to my knowledge. You have the right to appeal a deferred sentence, conviction on a plea of guilty, or guilty verdict at conclusion of trial. If you're a citizen of a country other than the U.S., not applicable. All right. So that's his constitutional right, his advisement of constitutional rights that he was advised of on the 5th. Here is another document from November 5th. Notice of invocation of constitutional rights. So he has a temporary legal counsel with him at this hearing on the 5th, his initial hearing, who has him invoke his constitutional rights. Specifically, the defendant objects to any search or seizure of his personal property for the purpose of discovering evidence relating to his or any other investigations, whether performed by law enforcement officers or at the request of law enforcement officers by others, without prior approval. Objects to any interview, questioning, interrogation, or other verbal or written communication or its functional equivalent related to any investigation. Defendant hereby stipulates that his written invocation of his rights is to remain in full force and effect until such time as he, after consultation with his counsel, voluntarily executes a written notice of revocation or waiver of the state and federal constitutional protections. Defendant authorizes his lawyer and all employees and representatives of and persons working for his lawyer to interview him, examine his records, and have access to any and all manner of information regarding him. Okay. I hereby revoke any releases and waivers of any nature previously signed, except those releases and waivers which will allow information to be communicated to my lawyers or persons working with my lawyers. This notice and invocation of rights shall remain in full force and effect until such time as I, after consultation with counsel, voluntarily execute a written revocation. Signed the 5th of November. Braydon Brown, and a witness. And at the same time, his temporary defense attorney filed a motion for discovery. Defendant Braydon Brown, let's go up. Pursuant to the Oklahoma statute and the U.S. and Oklahoma Constitution, moves the court to order the state to disclose the name and addresses of witnesses, law enforcement reports, any written or recorded statements, and the substance of any oral statements made by the accused or made by a co-defendant. At this time, Braydon Brown doesn't have any co-defendants. We'll talk about that in part 2 and part 3. We may talk about it when we go through the probable cause affidavit in a few minutes here. Any victim statement provided by the alleged victim or other witnesses to the prosecution, any reports or statements made by experts in connection with the particular case, including results of physical or mental examinations and of scientific tests, experiments, or comparisons, to include victim statement for domestic violence cases form. Any books, papers, documents, photographs, tangible objects, buildings, or places which the prosecuting attorney intends to use in the hearing or trial, or which were obtained from or belong to the accused. Any record of prior criminal convictions of the defendant or co-defendant. To my knowledge, Braydon Brown doesn't have any prior convictions, criminal convictions as an adult. That's the key phrase, as an adult. Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation rap sheet records check on any witnesses listed by either party as a witness at trial, as well as any convictions of any witnesses revealed through additional records check if the defense has furnished social security numbers or date of birth, shall not provide date of birth, social security number, home phone number, or address. So those are redacted from these documents. Any evidence favorable to the defendant, if such evidence is material to either guilt or punishment, it is requested that this disclosure include material and information in the possession or control of members of the prosecutor's staff, any information in the possession of law enforcement agency, any information in possession of law enforcement agencies who have reported to the prosecutor with reference to the particular case. It is also requested that a continuing duty to disclose be imposed upon the state. All right, now we move up to November 12th. So a week later, he's back in court in front of the judge. Record of felony proceedings before the examining magistrate. 10 a.m. The defendant appeared personally and with his attorney, OIDS, in McCaffrey. So same attorney that helped him file all of the other documents we just went through is back with him, still with him. And this time it doesn't say temporarily. So I wonder if this guy is going to be assigned to him permanently. I think we find that out today, and you'll see why in a second here. Defendant makes written application for court-appointed counsel and is approved. The court appointed OIDS, Oklahoma Indigent Defendant Services, as counsel for the defendant and waived the application fee for the proceedings as to PHC set for December 17th. That's today at 10 a.m., which was a couple of hours ago. PHC, I don't know what that means. The defendant's bail is fixed as previously set, $250,000. Bond continued until December 17th at 10 a.m. This is not his primary judge, which was Judge Parsley. This is an associate district judge. I think that's Abby Lou Cash. I think that's her name. She is, I believe, the same judge that adjudicated Jose Menyares' cases back in the spring of this year and deferred his sentence on the one count for 7 years. I believe that's the same judge. We'll get deep into those the other day. I have his court documents too. All right. So now we have November 12th, order appointing attorney. Now on this 12th day of November, so we just saw that the judge approved his indigent counsel. The above named defendant appearing without an attorney and having informed the court that he desires counsel, satisfactorily shown, has no means, is unable to employ counsel, is therefore ordered by the court that the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System, okay, OIDS, supply a duly licensed and practicing attorney and member of the Oklahoma Bar as counsel for the defendant. Hearing date and time, December 17th, 2025 at 10 a.m. So he wasn't appointed counsel officially. That McCaffrey guy, I wonder if he's going to be permanently appointed. It was supposed to be decided today. So today's hearing was at least to appoint him counsel, official counsel. So if he has not had official counsel appointed yet, hold on a second. We're done with that. So if he has not had official counsel appointed yet, then that means that, and if it's somebody besides McCaffrey that is appointed, discovery hasn't even started yet. Like the defense counsel hasn't even had begun reviewing discovery. So it's going to be probably several months before we get to trial in this. Now, if they already kind of decided that McCaffrey is going to be his permanent defense counsel, then he may have gotten discovery already and he may have already started going through it, which would speed up the trial by a month and a half, which is when he was first appearing with Braydon Brown in court. So last but not least, let's go back through the probable cause affidavit and let's go through it in detail. And we're going to do it again in at least part 2, if not parts 2 and 3, because we were boots on the ground. Me and Brittany and Rochelle went out to London Spa, which is this picture behind me. And we drove down the roads, and as you saw from a little preview video from about a week ago, we were there at her spot and they were talking about specifics because they were there 2 days later after her body was found. They went out there with Beaver County Sheriff Scott Mitchell, whose name I believe appears in the probable cause affidavit. So let's go over the probable cause affidavit now in detail. Oh no, did I close it out? I closed it out. I'm going to have to open it back up. Give me a second here. Probable cause affidavit. Here we go. Got to share that. And add to screen. Hello. Now we get our StreamYard glitches. Wouldn't be a good day. if we didn't get a StreamYard glitch. And add to screen, add to stage. Here we go. All right. In the District Court of Beaver County, State of Oklahoma, defendant Braydon Brown. Affidavit of probable cause for arrest warrant. The undersigned of lawful age, being first duly sworn upon this oath, deposes and states as follows. So I'll break the suspense right now. Well, we already looked at the last page of this. I am Special Agent Ryan Beck. He is of lawful age. He was the primary investigator on this. We'll see at the bottom other people that were involved in the investigation. The OSBI had several people working on this case. And they're listed at the bottom as primary witnesses or experts that were used in this investigation. I am Special Agent Ryan Beck of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Beck has been employed with the OSBI for approximately 6 years. Prior to the OSBI, Beck was an investigator for Custer County Sheriff's Office. Interesting. I didn't know that. I have read certain official investigative reports and statements of witnesses regarding the above named defendant, and from these statements and reports, it appears as follows. On June 12, 2025, Beaver County Sheriff Scott Mitchell requested the OSBI investigative assistance with a suspicious death of a female located at County Road NS 135 and County Road EW 9. So obviously NS is north-south County Road, EW 9 is east-west intersection in Beaver County. The female was identified as a juvenile female, LV. LV was listed as a runaway from LV's grandmother's house in Hooker, Oklahoma. The investigation found that on June 5th, 2025, LV left her residence in Hooker, Oklahoma with an adult male, Jose Munoz. Jose and LV drove to Woodward, Oklahoma, where they met with Braydon Brown. So that's a little different chronology than was my understanding. So my understanding was wrong, and I think I may have misspoke on previous airings on this, talking about it. I thought they went from Hooker to Jose's place in Guyman, but apparently they went. So Woodward is where Braydon's mother lives, and that's where Braydon was staying at that time on June 5th. Interviews were conducted, and it was found that Jose, Braydon, and LV spent the night in Woodward at the home of Brown's mother, Joanna Brown. While at the residence, Joanna witnessed Jose, Braydon, and LV drink alcohol and smoke marijuana. Joanna heard the three speak about methamphetamines. Jose believed that Braydon and LV ingested cocaine and methamphetamine while at Joanna's house. When Joanna went to work on June 6, 2025, at 0800 hours, Jose, Braydon, and LV were at Joanna's home. When Joanna returned from the home at approximately 1400 hours, the three were gone. On June 6, 2025, the three traveled to the home of Braydon's father, Leo Brown. Leo arrived home at approximately 1700 hours and noticed Braydon, Jose, and LV at Leo's residence. Jose left the residence as Leo arrived home. Braydon and LV were at Leo's residence when Leo left at approximately 1800 hours. When Leo arrived home after midnight on June 7th, Braydon and LV were gone. Phone locations. This is going to play a big part in this. And I wonder if Special Agent Ryan Beck is the one that did the phone extractions and the Celebrite interpretation of the gray key data. Phone locations for Jose and Brayden showed that Jose, Brayden, and LV drove to Guyman, Oklahoma. So that's where Jose lived. Perryton, Texas, and Beaver, Oklahoma from late June 6, 2025 to the early morning hours of June 7th, 2025. So this crossed state lines. They're committing crimes, and I don't know if they're misdemeanors or felonies, but they have a runaway with them crossing state lines. And it makes me wonder, and it makes the family wonder why the FBI didn't get involved in this. If in the commission of these crimes, they cross state lines. I don't know how that works. If the FBI has to be requested by the OSBI to get involved. Those are questions we all have. Phone locations, okay, to the early morning hours of June 7th. During this time, LV's family attempted to contact LV in hopes of convincing her to come home. The three then traveled to Guyman, Oklahoma. Jose stated the three planned to visit a marijuana dispensary in Guyman, but Jose changed his mind and decided to visit with, in parentheses, my parentheses, other friends. Jose stated that LV decided to return home, and Brayden offered to drive her back to her residence in Hooker, Oklahoma. So Guyman is southwest of Hooker, so he's got to drive northeast, and then they keep driving northeast. Jose stated that LV decided to return home. Brayden offered to drive her home. Brayden was interviewed and admitted Brayden was intoxicated from Xanax. Brayden stated LV was intoxicated by methamphetamines. As Brayden drove LV believed the two were followed by law enforcement, which caused Brayden to panic. Excuse me. Brayden began to drive down a dirt road in an attempt to get, this is all the way outside of Forgan, Oklahoma. So they had to drive northeast past Hooker, and then east, like Forgan is almost due east of Hooker, if I remember right. There's another little town that's northeast of Hooker before you cross the state line into Kansas. Began to drive down a dirt road. We drove down that dirt road. We'll have some of that footage in parts 2 and 3. Brayden and LV called Joanna and told Joanna the two were being chased by law enforcement. Brayden told Joanna that Brayden loved her just in case Brayden didn't speak to her again. I'm going to have to get a drink. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. This is a lot of reading for one person. Goodness. All right. Let's read that last part again. That's interesting. Brayden told Joanna that Brayden loved her. So Brayden told Joanna, that's his mom, that he loved her just in case he didn't speak to her again. He drove down the dirt road where the vehicle became stuck 3/4 of a mile north of County Road NS 135 and EW9 intersection. Brayden exited the vehicle and ran through a field towards a residence, and LV ran the opposite direction from Brayden. This is the last time Brayden had contact with LV. Brayden knew LV was under 18 and knew LV ran away from home. Beaver County Sheriff's Office was called to the residence at 21:30 hours on June 7th, 2025. At 22:07 hours, Beaver County Deputy Jason Johnston arrived and made contact with Brayden. So 22:07 hours, 10:07 at night. Beaver County Deputy Jason Johnston arrived and made contact. Johnston asked Brayden why Brayden was in the area. Brayden told Johnston that Oklahoma Highway Patrol troopers dropped him off and told him to pick weeds out of the ditch. He was made to pick weeds as a punishment for getting into a pursuit with the Highway Patrol. Likely story, right? Bray did not tell Johnston that he was in a vehicle that became stuck or was with LV. Johnston observed Brayden to be intoxicated on a substance and drove him to his dad's residence. The morning of June 8th, 2025, Brayden went back to the location with friends to retrieve the vehicle because the vehicle was owned by Jose's dad. So we have the call log records from that day. And there was actually an order put in from the sheriff's office to send a wrecker out there, and somebody canceled that order. Now we find out he went back to the location with friends to retrieve the vehicle. Brayden admitted that he did not attempt to locate LV after the two ran from the vehicle. So he was back there the next day when she was lying deceased next to the road 3/4 of a mile away. A review of call detail records found that Brayden and LV drove through Hooker, where LV lived, and east towards Forgan, where the vehicle eventually became stuck southeast of Forgan. The review also found that Brayden only attempted to contact her 4 times after the last time. Wherefore, the affiant praised the court to find there is probable cause, and we already saw this, for second-degree murder. So there are some interesting details in that probable cause affidavit. I had the story backwards. I thought they went to Guyman first. They went to Woodward first, and then they went to Beaver. So they went from Brayden's mom's to Brayden's dad's, and then they went to Jose's and Guyman, and then through Hooker east of Forgan in those 3 days, June 5th to June 7th. So that wraps it up for part 1. I'm going to get I'm going to get an update from Brittany and Rochelle on what happened at today's hearing, and we'll keep you posted on that. I planned on going to the hearing today. My trip got canceled. So I will be at the next one. I will be at the next hearing, and that probably got scheduled today. So find out what that date is. I'll make my plans, and I will be able to give you live updates from the Beaver County Courthouse, starting with the next hearing, probably in about 30 days, 28 days, whatever the judge determined to be the next hearing date. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for caring about London and getting justice for London. And stay tuned for more updates. Stay tuned. We might do a live update with Brittany and Rochelle later this afternoon. We'll find out. Thank you all so much. Take care. Happy holidays.
See you soon, my lovely friends. Have a good afternoon. Don't forget to stop back by and see me real soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference.